Hello, everybody, and welcome to another character spotlight. Now, if you were following our campaign yesterday, the Lost Mine of Mendelver series, which is our Friday night dice crew every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you're following on with the game yesterday, it was a crazy thing happened when Leo, who's our DM, decided to bring back my character from campaign one. This character is Terese. Now, Terese is probably it's the number one character I fell in love with. I've made in the whole D. I've made like tons and tons and tons of characters in D&D, 3D crafting like that. But Terese is that one character that holds a special place in my heart. And because he brought him out this last night, I figured I'd just get into it now. I was eventually going to talk about him, but I'll get into now. Now, one thing to note about this particular build that I have is that technically it was a UA, which means it's like a beta release that gets put out by Dungeons and Dragons Wizards of the Coast. Now, when I first got into D&D, when I started trying to get back into it, I was one of the Critical Role people. I'm like, oh, you know what? I miss playing D&D. I want to connect and get my ideas out there and creativity out there again. And that actually helped me spurn this. Plus, my future bride to be behind me here got me back into doing little streaming things. So you could thank Critical Role, Dungeons & Dragons, my soon-to-be wife, and everything to get me back into this again. But anyways, like when I was starting to look into maybe playing D&D again, that was about the same time that this UA came out for the Artificer for the Eberron series, and it was the Archivist. Now, again, this was a UA, and it didn't pan out. It didn't go into a full release. But that particular subclass is exactly what I had planned for my character for Terese. This is exactly what he's about. So let me go into and explain what is Terese, like what is his backstory exactly. So this is Terese right here. Actually, this way because my camera's flipped. So this is Terese right here. He is a high elf artificer as his primary race and class. He does, of course, with artificers, they have leather armor. He has a crossbow, which is the repeating crossbow, which is magical. It gives you a +1 and automatically reloads. Since it has an automatically reload feature to it, it allows him to keep up with the multiple attacks that artificers have. Artificers can attack twice in a turn. Now, the one thing to note about him is this gauntlet right here. I also want to courtesy Hero Forge over there. They make great minis, and this is a colored version of it. I just wish I had the money to buy the $50 to print them off. But yeah, so this is him and would be in color. I could not find a facsimile picture online like I did with Ryan. But this gauntlet that you see right here, this is actually a prosthetic. When Terese was born, which is very rare, which is unheard of for elves, he was actually born without a left arm. So he wanted to get into magic and create magic, but he couldn't control the motions for it. So he, and of course, and other elves and like that made fun of him because he couldn't do it because he only had one arm. So he locked himself away for a while and designed and researched a way to create a prosthetic arm for him. And from his research and I actually did do some D&D research for this. And for this, what I ended up finding was using treant wood. So the brown part is actually wood built from treant bark, which brings in the magical properties of it. And the blue sections that you see here that I put in, and what would be in the rivets in the fingers, you can only do so much in Hero Forge, is actually called bluing steel, which is a anti-rusting type of steel. So this gauntlet will never rust. It puts into the whole magic of never never getting rusted or fading away. So I brought all that in. I did a lot of research online and some research in D&D and like that, and I kind of created that to fit in there. Now, what fits also with the archivist thing is that the treant, or the spirit that was left in it, would manifest itself as part of the archivist ability, which was called, and I'm bringing it up here, artificial mind. So the artificial mind ability was part of the gauntlet that he created himself with the artificial prosthetic arm. Brought that whole tie into there, and and also I'll explain this as I go along. That this character was made not for min maxing. A lot of the characters I make are for story, for character building. And do I try to find ways through that to make them as efficient as possible? Yes. But is it a limiting thing on myself to try to do it that way? Yeah, probably is. But it just makes it more meaningful and you feel like more attached to your character for having those limitations because there is some flaws to them and innately. And so that's why I really like to make characters like Terese and like Ryan and future characters I have coming up, which I will be showing when we get closer to those campaign settings. And but for Therese wise, that's how he did that. So he can create a gauntlet, so he can move his fingers, so he can do all the controlling of the magic and everything that he could do in throughout the story. And then and part of that also going back to that is trying to control his fate, and he was so driven down from the bullying and everything else throughout his whole life that he wants to try to control his own destiny, his own fate. Now we bring in the newest addition to D&D world, which is from Critical Role, which is the Explorer's Guide to Wildmile, bringing in the Chronomancer. So the Chronomancer tries to control time and chance and everything to create a different outcome, like a different possibility. So that's that whole tie in there. So you put the two together and you move on from there. And for story wise, I wanted to go 6 levels in Artificer, which timed in just right with our DM, which was Inti. And he had us go into this wizard tower so I could get my very first level in the wizard track. And I also wanted the 6th level artificer so I could get mind network, which also adds in any psychic damage I do from artificer spell or the information overload ability. Would also gain the intelligence modifier damage. That was a free +5 damage to any psychic damage I would do on a roll, and there's a lot of other spells and abilities I had that do psychic damage, so added in even more damage to everything. So without further ado, let's go into the character sheet and talk about that actually further. So in this character sheet we have here, so he had 8 strength, again, because of the prosthetic arm. It wasn't really a physical, and being a wizard and all, so that was kind of low. Dexterity is 18. Being an elf and being dexterous like that, and having to shoot the crossbow and like that. And the crossbow for the artificer kind of works like Eldritch Blast. Yes, there is a level curve to it, where an artificer will only have 2 attacks unless they have 8 haste, and they maybe can get a 3rd attack. Versus where a warlock could have 4, I think maybe even 5 Eldritch Blast shots. So there's a limit to that ability, but if you have a magic weapon, your bonus plus would actually be higher than the plus side for charisma. So you can actually, if you have like a plus, say, 2 crossbow, for instance, now you're hitting at a +7 damage with a +7 to hit. So it actually, so you have a higher chance to hit a little bit higher base damage versus the multiple shots to try to hit as well. So there's a little curve there. So that's basically how it works in Artificer. Constitution 14 was basic. Intelligence, of course, 20. He is a wizard. Artificer uses his mind, not his brawn, to create everything he needs. Wisdom 12, just basically, he's a bookworm. Doesn't know anything about the outside world because he really locked himself in the room. So he's book smart, not street smart. And Charisma 8, he is, again, a solo kind of person, doesn't get along with people, cusses a lot. It's like, yeah, I don't give a crap about that, man. Just, come on, man. Work harder. Get good, kind of thing. That's his kind of, like, attitude for things. But he does have softer sides where he can understand people's positions from his own disability and like that. So he has some sympathy there, but at the same time, he's kind of tough because he has the chip on his shoulder, so to speak. And the initiative is kind of cool because initiative, according from the Chronomancer and like that, you can add in your intelligence score with your dexterity score for your initiative. So he has a +9 initiative, which is that puts him in the fight very, very quickly. So the lowest I can roll is a 10 into the combat. So so Leia must have rolled a 2 to go into combat there. Current hit points 86. I was actually rolling my HP, and I was rolling ridiculously well with my HP, so that was pretty good. Bird of Prey was a special weapon I found along the way. That was a +1 heavy crossbow, so it does 1d10. Plus, I have the added on repeating feature for it, so I can actually shoot that twice. So that was kind of cool. And then Shadow Blade, I'll get into the spell later. Information Overload, Distant Whispers for kind of a little bit more range. Pulse Wave was a force damage thing. Of course, I had an option to getting Fireball, but I believe 2 guys on our team had Fireball already, so I wanted a different type of damage than just fire damage, fire damage, fire damage. So force damage is a really good alternative damage to have, because there is certain creatures in the game. I think there's a total of maybe 2, maybe 3 creatures in the game that have some sort of immunity or resistance to force damage. It's like actually no, 4. There's 4 creatures in the game that has resistance to force damage. So force damage will basically hit any creature in the game. So it's a guaranteed chance of not having it resistant and stuff almost. Chromatic Orb would be all the other elements. If I fight, say, an Ice Dragon, I want to use a fire spell, then I can use my Chromatic Orb. Raiden's Earth and Grass is just Bigsby's hand, or Bigsby's Earth and Grass. I just renamed it because Raiden is the name of the treant. That's the gauntlet that appears for the mind. And I also have some other ones. Sapping Sting. That was just I could pick up end up being able to pick up a cantrip, and I just grabbed that. Basically, Sapping Sting is basically like a Vulcan neck pinch, I guess, from Star Trek. I guess you could say. So there's a reference there. That's basically what it is. It's like you touch a creature, and you have a chance to make them fall flat on their face to knock them down. And it also deals 3d4 necrotic damage, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, it is exactly like a Vulcan neck pinch. Also, the Bird of Prey had a special option where I could target a creature, and it would add +1 to my attack, +1 to the damage on top of what I already had. So I had a +10 to hit with a +6 piercing damage, and I could also target a creature within like 300 feet away. I knew where they were. So he's kind of like a tracker hunter kind of thing too. This is where that rogue part comes in, where, like I said in the at the end of the stream, where this one crazy thing that I was able to do with this character is I was able to jump out of. We had an airship. The airship's part of the campaign that we had, and he jumped out of the airship at like 7,000 feet in the air, and we're supposed to infiltrate this hill giant base / dam. So my guy's idea was to split away from the party. Again, splitting the party is never a good idea, but I did it anyways. So I backflipped out of the airship, Captain America style, flew down through the air, and just before it hit the water, casted Featherfall. So I went from zzz, and then slowly went into the water. And as I'm going into the water, I'm pulling up the hood to activate Cloak of the Manta Ray, because Artificer. So he gets into the water, and then he goes flying through the water, which I believe Cloak of Manta Ray does like 120 feet per round, or something like that. So now he's jetting under the water, we're able to water breathe, all the way under the water up to the edge of the base. And then when he gets there, he casts Invisibility. So now I'm infiltrating the base from the waterfront, single-handedly and invisible. And I also believe that his stealth was kind of high. Yeah, +8 to stealth. So and we didn't have a rogue in the group. And the cool thing about this artificer with the archivist is I had all these tools. I had thieves tools, tinker tools, woodcarver's tools, smith tools, forgery kit, and a calligrapher's kit. So yeah, he and you. This was everything I could get as the rules. It was part of D&D. I did not add that in or anything. I just followed the rule book, and yeah, you could have that many tools and kits and supplies with an artificer. It was kind of crazy. And I also had playing cards set on top of that because it was a gambler. And then languages, I think I had like a bunch of languages. Elvish, because it was an elf. Gnomish, because it was the whole tinkering thing with the artificer, with the calculations. The Gnomish language has different wording and stuff like that for the calculations and like that. So I added that as a language. And of course, you had all the Elvish weaponry and stuff like that. And a cool thing later on that that Inti gave me later was called Timed Strike. And this was a special training session I got that I passed through through RP, and that was once per turn. When I roll damage for an attack or a spell, I can add my intelligence modifier to that damage up to the total number of intelligence modifier I had. So I could add a +5 to whatever roll, attack, or spell that I could use as part of my Chronomancer, where I could hit it like precisely because I knew where they were going to be at that time. So that was kind of cool. Again, now we'll go back to Artificial Mind. As you can see, this is a long wall of text you can see here. I'm going to break it down a little faster for everybody. But at level 3, you awaken basically a mind in an object, a magic item or something. In this case, it was his gauntlet with the treant, which was Raiden. Basically, and it gives you the ability of telepathic advisor, which, given the material it's made of, since this was made out of wood, it gave me more intelligence or wisdom checks that I could have a bonus to. So basically, when the artificial mind supplies you with advice and information about certain topics, history or an arcana. So it gave me a proficiency in arcana and history. So that was pretty cool. And then when I manifest it as a bonus, you can use it as basically a find familiar, because it will be like this little glowing kind of blue mind of the face. Which, if you saw that, you see the face. I didn't have it prepped, but basically it's an old like kind of like fey face that was blue with shining eyes, but it had like a wooden complexion because it was Atrian. And you have dark vision with it, and you can sense through its eyes and its hearing just like you would with a familiar. And you can move it up to 30 feet, and it can go 300 feet away from you. So again, it's kind of like the Find Familiar spell, but you get it as an ability. You don't even have to cast it. And then there's Information Overload, which is kind of like Shocking Grasp, but it does psychic damage as opposed to lightning damage. So it's the same thing. It's 1d8 psychic, but it's basically like Shocking Grasp, but it does psychic damage, and it scales. And it scales up with levels 5th, 11th, 17th, just like it would with a cantrip. Whew, man, that's long. Let's see what I had. Arcane, of course, Arcane Recovery from the Wizard. Then I had the Mind Network, like I said, which gave me Magical Telephony. Well, I have basically, if I had an Artificial Mind item, anybody who has one of my Artificial Mind items that I made, I can communicate with them telepathically anywhere. And it can even cross plenty of boundaries, which is ridiculous. Again, don't forget, this is a UA. So a lot of this is kind of big and crazy. But I could basically get two-way communications with every single person on my team, because the item that I made for everybody was a backpack that had the same pocket dimension of all of us. So all three of us had this like kind of fanny pack where we could put like healing potions into, and those healing potions would be available to every single person in the group. But because my character made that item, they gave me the mind network, so I could communicate with all of them telepathically, so we could know and have them talk because we were infiltrating a base. They could talk to me, and I could pass the word on everybody else. So it's kind of crazy. And again, the psychic damage of the touch modifier, it says +3. It's actually supposed to be +5. And then oh yeah, and the other thing he gave us was ranged specialties. So it gave me the whole sharpshooter, precise shooter abilities. So I don't get disadvantage on prone targets, and I don't get negative. I don't get negative on half or 3/4 cover, and long range doesn't impose disadvantage. So I could use this thing from 300, 260, 300 feet away, and I would have no disadvantage on the attack roll. And I could add +5, +5, so it's +10, +1 on top of that, so it's +11. So I do 1d10 +11 damage to a target 300 feet away. So sniper. So like I said, this character can do like crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And then, of course, I mentioned temporal awareness, which was adding your intelligence to the initiative roll, so it gave me +9 for initiative as opposed to +4. And then we had the +5 in the 6th level ability. Sorry, I'm going to cough for a second. Then you had the momentary stasis ability, which is an ability I tried. And what this does is 60 feet away, large creature or smaller. I make a Constitution. They're forced to make a Constitution saving throw versus my spell DC, which my spell DC I believe is 17, which it is. So as a DC 17, or the creature gets encased in magical energy, and he basically he's incapacitated and has a movement speed of 0. So incapacitated, in other words, meaning the creature cannot take actions or reactions. So our creature can't take actions or reactions, and their speed is 0, so they're basically locked in place. So it literally frees them in time. Again, this goes back to the whole controlling fate again, and the whole. If you want to go also to control fate, there's also the cell level 2 ability, which I will say is basically the luck ability, and I hate luck ability, but this is pretty much luck ability. This is called Chronal Shift. You get this at level 2, by the way, on Chronomancer, and it is when you magically exert limited control over the flow of time around a creature, any creature, as a reaction. So you can use this any time during a round, one time. After a creature you can see within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can force that creature to re-roll. This is actually better than a luck ability, because not only do it, like if say Nicholas, who was our fighter from campaign 1, if you roll like a natural 1 on his attack, I can take a gauntlet of Chrono Shift and go like, no, and I just go like this, like bring it back, and Chrono Shift back, nope, get to re-roll that. You get to re-roll again, he hits with the attack. But it's kind of like Luck Feet. But it works in the opposite way. So this is kind of like the Grave Clearer, where if the DM roll a natural 20, I can be like, nope, Chrono Shift, flip it back. So I can make the DM roll again off a natural 20 so he didn't even crit. And I did that a couple of times during the campaign, which frustrated the heck out of Indy. And I can use this 2 times per long rest. So I can do it twice, not just once, twice. Again, this character down here, he's a saint. And the whole chronomancy that I got from Matt Mercer, the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, plus the UA that I got from the Eberron series like that, and combining the two just made this so cool. And later on, if it went later, because we stopped at level 11 or 12, I had to level them up at the end of the campaign just to level them up and just get to that level 12, because level 12 was the pre-build that I was looking for, so how things would work. And later on, he would get he could freeze a spell into a marble or a little bead, and I could give it to somebody else. So basically, I could give pulse wave, and I could put it into a little bead, and I can give it to somebody, and then for 1 hour, the person can carry the bead on them, and they can throw it at somebody, and then they would actually cast pulse wave at that target using my spell everything. So my spell DC, my bonus spell attack, everything. When they actually cast it out of the speed, and that's level 10, and then final level 14, which is the cap for a wizard, for the subclass for a wizard, was could basically as I'll just read it. You can peer through the possible uh, futures and magically pull one of them into the events around you, ensuring a particular outcome. When you are a creature you can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can use your reaction to ignore the die roll completely and decide whether the number rolled is the minimum needed to succeed or is one less than that number to miss. Your choice. However, so basically, so before I get to whatever, basically that means that I don't even need to roll. If I want this to hit, it will hit. If I get hit in the face with a fireball, I'd be like, roll the die. Oh, no, that one succeeds. Sorry. However, I know, crazy ability. I say, yep, that succeeded. Don't worry about it. However, every time I use this, I get a point of exhaustion. And only finishing a long rest can remove one level exhaustion in this way. So could you use it multiple times? Yes. But each time you gain a level of exhaustion, I'll go make a quick reference here. If it's even in there. I don't actually see. I don't think it's even in there. Whoops. Okay, it's not even in there. But every time you get a level of exhaustion, oh, there it is. First of all, you get disadvantage on ability checks at the first level. Then your speed is half, so we go from 30 feet to 15 feet. Okay, not bad, but I have missy stuff to get around it. But then, level 3, you get disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. Level 4, my hit point maximum would get halved. So you see there's a compounding effect to making outcomes go the way you want. And then you'd have to take a long rest for each individual exhaustion, to get rid of each individual exhaustion. So if you had, say, 3 levels of exhaustion, which is a disadvantage on ability check, speed is half, and disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws, that means you have to take 3 long rests before you could actually get out of it. Being an elf, that means only 4 hours, because elves only need 4 hours to get a long rest in. So in other words, I'd have to rest for 12 hours straight of long resting in order to do that. I don't know what the rules are for long rest and how many long rests you can do in a day, but that's what you're looking at for trying to get rid of that for that ability. So yeah, and then some of the spells I had on them. I mentioned some of them, but you had a Dissonant Whispers, Comprehend Languages, because he was the researcher person of the group. Disguise Self, again, the whole infiltration system that he could do. Expeditious Retreat, we actually ran into a guy, a dwarf, that we were trying to pursue, and I used, and you can actually use Expeditious Retreat and Longstrider, because one of them you don't have to concentrate on, which is Longstrider. So I could increase my speed by 10 feet with Longstrider, and then as a bonus action, next turn I cast Expeditious Retreat, which made me be able to do the dash action. So I could move action, dash action, 120 feet per turn to try to catch up with this guy. And unfortunately, Inti was doing the exact same thing with him. So yeah, 120 feet per turn, I can just run down things so they don't run away from me. Of course, shield, being a wizard, and I could go, nope, shield, I +5 to my AC, or absorb elements to get rid of that. Again, I mentioned chromatic orb. Detect thoughts, locate object, and misty step. Again, the whole infiltration. See invisibility actually did come in handy a couple times because something turned invisible on us, so I could see it no matter what. Enhance ability, just extra padding because I have low strength and low charisma. So that gave me the ability to increase those chances of me succeeding with those. Fortune's favor, again, is the whole luck thing about controlling your destiny and everything. Wrist pocket was kind of cool, where you can take an item that you might have stole from a thing and just go, whoop, and now it's in a pocket dimension for an hour. So if they try to search you and everything, yeah, I don't have the item on me. And then after the hour, anytime you can go, oh, there it is. Oh, that's back. So pretty cool ability there. I had levitate. Some of these spells, like I see, this X line is things above it is from Artificer. From down is the Sorcerer. Oh yeah, Shadow Blade. This is actually a cool ability. So for Shadow Blade, what he would do is he would take his gauntlet and he could draw. How I described it was he could draw on the inside of his arm like this, and purple black sparks would come flowing behind his fingertips, kind of like what you do with like on a match. When you strike a match like that, you kind of have that little sparks coming off. And he gets over, and then as he gets to the palm of his wrist, he would flip it over, and then this long, shadowy sword would come out, which is the Shadow Blade, and that would be his melee weapon. And Shadow Blade is ridiculous because, and I could cast 5 levels. So if I wanted to use my 5th level slot and cast this thing, I could do the damage would increase to 4d8. Plus, Shadow Blade also counts as a finesse weapon. So you can add your dexterity modifier to the damage. And because this is dealing psychic damage, I could also include my intelligence modifier to the damage. So now, when I'm attacking with the sword here, the Shadow Blade, I'm doing, if I can hit, I'm doing, which on this Artificer, I can use my intelligence, which is +5 to hit, and instead of +4. So, because of the finesse weapon, I get dexterity plus the psychic damage, so I can do the intelligence. So now I'm dealing 4d8 plus 9 damage. Oh, by the way, I have 2 attacks per turn. Now you know why everybody was really disappointed when I messed with my attacks last night. Because this thing can do ridiculous amounts of damage with a Shadow Blade when it's in the right hands of a character. And after that, like I mentioned, Pulse Wave, we had multiple fireballs. This is an alternate to Pulse Wave. Another counter spell. We had like 3 people with counter spell in the group. Haste, slow. Haste is slow because you're controlling time. Wasn't really going to use it much, but I took the spells because it had to do with time changing management. Also got Phantom Steed because I want to ride on a horse, man. And Lehman's Tiny Hut, of course, because I was the person to help people sleep. And because I was had multiple classing, had 3 spell slots at 4th level, 1 spell slot at 5th level to cast upcasts on my spells. So I could upcast a Pulse Wave to a 4th level, which would add additional 1d6, making it a 7d6 force damage. And of course upcast on the Shadow Blade like that. So overall, like I said, this was Terese, who, like I said, is probably one of my favorite characters I've ever designed or made. Fell in love with this guy, and again, getting back into Dungeons and Dragons, I wouldn't have it any other way for a character to come back to the game with. So it was kind of cool to be able to play him as a character and RPing like that. So, but anyways, thank you for joining me for this. If you're watching this before August 13th, Friday 13th, don't forget our one shot with Friday Night Dice, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that Friday. I'll be DMing for the first time ever in 20 years. It's crazy. I know. I got my script ready to go and everything for the guys, and we should have a lot of fun. So don't forget to tune in for that. And after that, I'll be having no videos for a week because I'll be too busy getting married somewhere else. So yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much, and have a good day.